Well, as many of you know, as a past president of our club, one of the honors you get the following year is the opportunity to help coordinate our foundation giving campaign called the Nath Challenge. And for our club, it's pretty easy because I think Mary talked about Mr. Lucas, and then you've got another gentleman over there, Mr. McDonald, that have really set the table on this event and really do as co-chairs, and I'll talk about them a little bit later, and really make it pretty darn easy on the president. So anyway, with that, I thought we would start out with a little bit of an agenda just to kind of talk a little bit about the history of Rotary Foundation, very, very high level, and then we'll talk a little bit about how our club in particular talks to that history and how we have supported the foundation itself, where that support has come back, because some of those funds, our foundation chair will talk about how some of those funds come back to programs that we initiate. We'll talk about, Jim will talk a little bit about the challenge for some of you newer members and how that works, and then we'll have a presentation by Bob Halligan at the end. So with that, a little bit, jump into the foundation itself. Foundation was started in 1917, as you can see, by a gentleman by the name of Arch Klump. And President Klump set up that foundation with a donation of $26.50. For those of you like Dave, that's here, that the counting people, that's $536 in today's dollars, really to start that. And the vision back then was to create an endowment for the purpose of giving good throughout the world. So what does that mean to Bloomington Rotary? Our foundation has been giving to Rotary International for 54 years. If you look at our contributions to date, they exceed $725,000. And as you'll see in a minute on some of our programs, they've made some notable differences both to people's lives locally and across the globe as well. We currently provide that support through this yearly, what's turned into the Mahendra Nath Challenge. This year is the 10th year in the row that we've kind of earmarked it as that name, the Mahendra Nath, and the 10th year that he has stepped up with a challenge piece to challenge the club to be 100% every Rotarian every year, which is really the focus of this campaign. Let's talk a little bit about support in action. And there's just numerous projects, but I just picked a couple, 3, 4 that were maybe might be highlight or might be noteworthy projects. From the local standpoint, a most recent one that is now in its second year, we did it as a pilot program under Don Stiles' guidance in 14, and created 6 additional Area 3 clubs helped in with that, packaging those lunches and those meals for the weekends for high school students in the Bloomington area. From an international standpoint, this goes back even before my membership here as the Haiti project. There was a individual with our club that was involved in the ministry in that, and really started and initiated a project that really, there's a story that on occasion they'll come back, and most of you older Rotarians have heard that or been around a number of years. It's the Children Stop Dying. It really talks about a fresh water project that had some start in our club, or at least some connection, and has really grown into an international type program. The next 2 are a couple of programs that really a couple of our members, Abul, International Village Clinic. Once a year our club gets kind of an update on Abul and what has happened, and that's really what started out to be a clinic has grown into really more of a healthcare and more encompassing village out in the northern part of India. And then Sandhya Gupta. Sandhya started with some very modest projects and just continues to grow. It started with some bikes and just trying to enable women in India and give them some opportunities. And it's really grown into a number of educational programs on that too. So these are all programs that were kind of started, maybe some grassroots from our end, but really had foundational support for them to grow. So give you a little bit of a feel for some of those direct projects with our club. Now with this, I'd like to kind of introduce the 2 co-chairs here to talk a little bit about the dynamics of the program itself. And I have Mr. Lucas and Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. I don't know where Mary got that information on me, but she didn't ask me, so she's got sources that I'm unaware of to dig into all of our bios, our profiles, our background.
It's supposed to be a surprise, Jim.
It was a surprise to me.
That I was successful.
You were successful. You know, Diane Kirby was mentioned. You know, this whole Nath challenge started when she was president of the club 10 years ago. And she sat down with Jim and I and asked, how could we do this foundation campaign a little differently or a little better? And this is the result, so it's pretty pleasing and exciting, and thank you, Diane, for your
Both
leadership.
you and Jim have done a fantastic job of moving this forward. It's and Mahendra.
Well, the program for our club runs through March. We've been successful doing it at that time of the year and making it a very specific 30-day period of time where every Rotarian is given the opportunity to make a commitment to the Rotary International Foundation. And there's good reasons to do that, and Bob Halligan is going to explain the why. Why do we care? Why do we do this? Mahendra's down in Florida. I think he left Friday, so he can't be here, but he'll be back in a couple weeks. And he told us again at a captain's meeting that he's committed to do this beyond his lifetime. So, I mean, that was amazing. That he is making a commitment to not only the foundation, but our club for years beyond his lifetime. In perpetuity. So, we have in our club 13 people, including Mahendra, who have committed to donate $1,000 a year, and they're members of the Paul Harris Society. That helps out a lot. That helps out a lot towards our campaign goal. And Mr. McDonald knows what our campaign goal is from the district. See, we've been given a goal by the district per member. Now, we don't care too much about that goal because we easily achieve it, but it's how much, Jim?
$365.
He is good. $365 per member. So
And we'll exceed that.
we'll exceed that with Mahendra's match of $4,800 with the 12 other people contributing $1,000. That helps out a lot for those of you that can't do that much.
If you don't give something, that team doesn't get Mahendra's matching. So you've got to give, every team has to give 100%.
We have 7 new members of our club, and so you'll be asked to contribute this year. And the district will match what you do. The district will match in points towards a Paul Harris Fellowship, which is a recognition which is given to you when you reach $1,000 of contribution. So those 7 new members, Julie Gulek from the college, right? Kelly Lohman, Dwayne Lohman, Alex Gonzalez, Bill Peterson, Mary Beth Workmeister, and Brian Ellis are those people who will benefit from a district match towards a Paul Harris Fellowship because they're first-year Rotarians. Okay, that's about it for me, other than Bob is here. Bob is going to be formally introduced by Mr. Wallach. Bob and I like to tease each other. He tries to goad us into a bet, and I'm sure he'll try that again this year, and we seem to win it each year. He was here last year, and I remember some things about last year. You're one of 3 boys, is that right, in your family? Yes. Your father died at age 5. Your mother came over from Europe at age 13 without much of an education and raised 3 boys. Was it Czechoslovakia? So Bob has got a heart for this kind of thing, and he's going to be our district governor coming up, and Dave will talk about that. So we really like Bob. He's a great Rotarian, and welcome, Bob, and would you please formally introduce him? Thank you.
Well, certainly from those humble beginnings, our guest speaker today, Bob Halligan, is a member of the Buffalo Rotary Club, as Jim mentioned, currently the District 5950 fundraising chair. Bob's service to Rotary is nothing less than impressive. He served as the president of Buffalo Rotary from 2009 to 10, District 5950 legal counsel from 2011 to 2014, Area 13 assistant governor from 2010 to 2013, and is scheduled to be our Rotary district governor in the year 17 to 18. Bob's Rotary journey has brought him to many places. It's taken him on numerous service trips to Guatemala, where his club has authored or participated in a number of grants, including grants promoting economic development, nutrition, and material health with indigenous women in 16 different villages around Guatemala City. As a day job, Bob does have a day job, Bob is an attorney with the Halligan Law Firm. He has practiced law for over 25 years, and his experience can be described as broad and deep, covering a variety of different areas. Bob defines himself by his clients' needs, representing businesses and business owners in many areas of business. His firm serves business both in the metro area and outstate Minnesota, focusing on corporate transactions, including business startups, sales, mergers and acquisitions, shareholder and partnership agreements, labor employment law, and real estate planning. He received his undergraduate degree at the University of Massachusetts, graduating summa cum laude, and his law degree here in town at William Mitchell College of Law, graduating magna cum laude, ranking 1 in his class. Please help me welcome Bob Halligan.
Thank you, Dave. I gave Dave about a 2-line bio to read today, so he obviously extended a little bit beyond what I had intended. I love coming back here. You guys have a wonderful club. I do have some hesitation coming to a club that refers to Jim Lucas as a gift. In Buffalo, we have other names for Jim Lucas, but no, Jim is a tremendous... Jim is a great Rotarian, and I love working with Jim. I love working with him on the foundation. And for those of you who were last year, this is my second time coming to your club to talk. And you know that I like to start my request for foundation giving by telling you my Rotary story. And since you heard it last year, I'm going to update it a little bit for you. But for those of you who hadn't heard it, let me give you just a little bit of background of who I am and why I'm up here today and willing to ask you to give to the Rotary Foundation. I see myself as in many ways the American success story. I'm a first-generation American. My mother and my father immigrated to this country from Czechoslovakia, and you guys may recall that my mother came over here when she was 13 years old. She spoke no English. She came from a small village in Czechoslovakia with very limited education. She had about a third-grade education from Czechoslovakia. She grew up in a farmhouse with no electricity, no running water, a farm girl, a hardworking farm girl. And she came to this country and she lived the immigrant experience. She married another Slovak. She had 3 sons, was widowed at an early age, was a hard-working woman who came to this country and succeeded in many ways, not necessarily material ways, but in other ways. But her character was a giving character. It was a character that said that you have an obligation, no matter what you have, no matter how little or how much you have, to give back to other people. And my mother infused that in me. She taught me all about giving, and she gave me the tools to be a success. I am the first one to graduate from college in my family. I went to law school. I used to be a partner in a downtown Minneapolis firm. I've had much of the success the way it would be defined under the American dream. And I do feel like I've had the chance to live the American dream in many, many ways. But for me, that obligation to give back was always a central part of my life, to try and figure out, how do you give back? How do you find a way to appropriately return all that you've been given in life? And for me, my Rotary moment began the year that I was president. I was like probably a number of you in this room, Rotarians who came to meetings, thought it was a good idea, participated in activities, wrote a check, but I didn't really understand Rotary until I became Rotary president of Buffalo. And I realized that I was part of an organization that was bigger than anything I had imagined, that was going to allow me to reach around my community, around the state, and around the world to do deeds consistent with the obligation I was taught I had to give back to others, to give to others who were less fortunate than I. So my Rotary moment began with that. I've told some of you this story before. I ended up in Guatemala the year that I was Rotary president, began giving back to young girls who dressed kind of differently, who had little education, who spoke a different language, and was able to support them in education the way my mother had never been able to be supported as she came to this country and began to build her life. That led me to the Wakami Project and this amazing woman in the middle of this photo, surrounded by these children, and the ability to, through Rotary, to reach out to villages around Guatemala to do work with literally hundreds of families, hundreds of women who were finding the means of making money and who were generating income for the first times in their life. And as a result of generating income, were able to take care of their families, to provide their children with education, to provide them with the ability to go to school, to feed back into their family, to give to their families in a way that in many ways is unique to women, I think. Now, in this past year, my story was updated a little bit because in February, I had a chance to go to Guatemala with some of my family members. That young man right there is my son, Michael, sitting next to his girlfriend. And I took them to a village called Sununa in Guatemala, which is at the top of a mountain overlooking Lake Atitlan. And in Sununa, there is a young lady who runs one of the Wakami communities. And she is a woman with a second or third grade education. She manages a business with 17 other women making Wakami jewelry and generating income in their village. She lives in a house with her mother, with her two small children, her father, her brother, and her husband. She's the third leader in this village because it's a tough village. The men don't like the fact that women earn an income. And this woman, Santos, is a woman with steel in her eyes. She's tougher than anybody in this room. She's tougher almost than anybody I've ever met because of what she's overcome to succeed in life. She also happens to be 20 years old, working in a home with no running water, with limited electricity, but she runs a business. And she makes money for it's going to be 25 women in her community. And when I introduced my son, Michael, and my other son was also there one of my other sons was also there, he made the same comment I made when I went to Pets. When I went to Pets and I discovered Rotary, my comment was that this changes everything, This changes everything. I've found something that makes a difference in my life. My son Michael, when I asked him, Michael, what do you think of this? What does this mean to you? And his comment to me was, this changes everything. Now, my son is a bioinformatics major. He's a scientist. He's getting his master's degree. He's much smarter than I am, obviously much better looking than I am. But to have the opportunity to take my son to that place, to give him that exposure and to have him recognize the value in giving to these communities was a very special moment. There was one more moment that I want to share with you from that trip that was really exceedingly special. So in that village, we worked that week in a village called Patalul. And Patalul is a small little community with about 350 families. We were in that village to build a Wakami Community Center, and we were there with about 17 other people, Rotarians, people who came in a spirit of service. The great Maria Pacheco was there to lead us. But in that village was a young man by the name of David. You see David on the right-hand side. David was scary looking. He was crippled. He can't walk very well. He lived in a house with a dirt floor, and he sat in the dirt all day long. He's developmentally disabled, and so he had no capacity to earn an income. And he was just scary looking, you know. He sat on the side of the road, and nobody wanted to talk to him. Not even Maria Pacheco, who's been in these villages for 25 years, could see David and wanted to talk to him. But this young lady who came with us on this trip saw David. She saw him and she told Maria, I need to talk to this guy. I need to talk to this man and understand who he is. So Maria and Megan went to talk to David, and the first words out of David's mouth were I want to kill myself. And David wanted to kill himself because he didn't have any way to make income, because he was an outcast in his own community, because he felt he had nothing in his life. And Megan saw him, and she said, well, I want to try and help. And so she did something very simple. She bought from David all of the gum he had to sell, because that's how David made money, was he would sell sticks of gum on the side of the road. And he'd sell a stick of gum for basically a penny. So Megan bought all of his gum and gave it all to the kids in the village. And the next day, somebody else went and bought David's gum. And we did that for the whole week. And by the end of the week, the kids in the village began to understand that David had value too. And every time we go back now, we see David and we talk to him, and he calls out to us, and we've provided some services to him. We always buy his gum. He's upgraded now. He's gone from gum to larger candy bars. But now David has a little role in his world. And, you know, he's just a young guy in Guatemala. He's never going to amount to anything in the eyes of the world. But Megan saw him and cared about him. And what was even more dramatic than that was how David changed the rest of us. Because when we heard that story, when we saw David and we saw that we needed to see David, it changed our worldview. It changed how we related to each other. And one of the impacts, and it's a beautiful one now, is that Megan connected with Chris Stone, who's a Rotarian from my club, and went back with Chris, and now they coach a Special Olympics basketball class together. Just because of the friendship they made and the understandings they developed from working with David. So that's my Rotary story. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, willing to ask you for money, willing to ask you to donate to the Rotary Foundation. You guys are easy. You're an easy club. You do great. You all know about every Rotarian every year. You all know about that $365 per Rotarian each year. That's our goal from the district level. If we could get every Rotarian to do that, we would raise $1 million every year. This is where we have been in terms of our district goals. So annually, in the annual fund in the last 4 years, we've gone from $588,000 in 11-12 to this past year, we were at $779,000, an increase of almost $120,000 from the year before. That's a tremendous growth pattern within our district. You can see Bloomington, what you've done is you've gone from 11 and 12, you were at 25,000. You went to 28, you were at 28 again in 13, 14. Then some guy came in and made a bet with your club that they couldn't raise as much as Buffalo, and all of a sudden you went from $28,000 to $35,000 in a year, and cost me $100. So I'm here to make that bet again, because that's a pretty good return on my $100. I got $7,000 off of that one. We'll make that bet. We're going to change it just a little bit though, because you guys are doing phenomenal. I mean, your growth in membership is tremendous. Since you're going to be at about 80 members and we're at about 67, 68 members, we'll make a bet, $100 bucks this time, Lucas, on the per capita giving, okay? So the per capita in the district was 204 in 11 and 12. It went up to 274. Again, you guys are tremendous. 350 4 years ago, 480 last year. Buffalo's was right around 360. I think we're going to beat you this year. $100 bucks? Why do you do it? Why do you give? Most of you know this story, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. All of that money that we give every year comes back to us at 50%. So each year, if we give $700,000, half of that comes back to us. And you can see where we are in terms of money. Last year, we had a little bit under $300,000 to spend. This year, we had $320,000 to spend, and we're projecting almost $390,000 in 17-18, the year I'm district governor. Every penny of that money gets spent by the clubs. None of that gets spent by the district. It is spent in projects. It's spent on the things that you do, so that the money you give comes back directly to our district to be spent by you guys. I don't have to tell you guys about what you do and what you give and how it works. I asked Jim to get me a list of projects that you guys have been involved in the last couple of years. This is just what I know of or I could see about the Matching Grant International projects. In the last 2 years, you've done over $1 million. You've been involved in over $1 million worth of international matching projects. You've done a bunch of local projects, local grants, almost another $80,000. All of that money, all of the district money that goes into those projects is based on what you give through the annual fund. Now, by my rough estimate, you did 13 projects that I knew of in the last 2 years. We didn't really know the numbers of what your club has given to those projects, but if you average donating $2,000 into those projects, and it was probably more than that on some of the international projects, but let's use that number. That would mean you put in $26,000 to participate in over $1 million worth of projects. That's a 42 times return on your investment. We got any investment advisors here? Is that a pretty good return? That's it. Can you guarantee your clients 42 times? That's 42 times in over 2 years. The Rotary Foundation is your money. You get to spend it on the projects you choose for the things that are most important to you. There is no other foundation or charity like that in the world. It is your charity as Rotarians. If you believe in being a Rotarian, you should give to Rotary as your charity of choice. You have in your club the star of our district when it comes to the Paul Harris Society, Carolyn. One of the ways that we as a district strive to reach that $1 million mark is to build a core of Rotarians in our district who are members of the Paul Harris Society. Carolyn is the chair of the Paul Harris Society. The Paul Harris Society members are people who pledge to give $1,000 every year. Most of us, many of us, not all of us in this room, who've had success in our businesses, in our lives, look at the end of the year to say, okay, have I given enough to charity? Have I given enough to my church, the United Way, to Cancer Society, to whoever that charity is? $1,000 a year to the Rotary Foundation makes you a Paul Harris Society member. If you are thinking about giving to charities that you really don't know much about and you don't have much of a connection to, think again about why you would not give to the Rotary Foundation if you're a Rotarian. It is your charity. Your club, your district gets to spend that money. If you are not a Paul Harris Society member, if you're not one of the 215 in our district, think about becoming one. Our growth in the Paul Harris Society has been dramatic. In less than 2 years, we've added 100 new members in our district. We're up to 215 members. You actually have 13 members, not 12 members. again, well represented in your district. You guys are easy. You guys are a great, great club, and I really do appreciate the ability to stand up here and talk to you about the foundation. If you're going to give, one of the easiest ways to just do it on a monthly basis, do it through Rotary Direct. $30 a month gets you to the district average. $85 a month makes you a Paul Harris Society member. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come back here. It's always fun to speak to good Rotarians and to good Rotary clubs, even if you think Lucas is a gift. But, no. Thank you, Jim, for inviting me again, and I'll look forward to getting that $100 when Buffalo beats you on the per capita challenge.
Thank you, Bob. And I do think that Jim is a gift. Come on back up, Bob. So in appreciation for your speaking presentation today, a donation to End Polio will be made in your name to End Polio Now, which is the signature project of Rotary International. And what I'm going to say, you know as well as anybody, but I'm going to say it anyway, that in the early 1980s, there were 400,000 cases of polio in the world each year, and Rotary decided to join with other organizations to lead the eradication of polio. We are so close to eradicating this devastating disease. We have had 2 cases so far in 2016, one on January 17th, the other on the 22nd in Pakistan. And this is to compare to last year, we've had 10 cases at this point in time. And in 2015, we had 74 cases in Pakistan and Afghanistan. So success over polio will help fuel the energy of what people of the world can do when we work together. And here is a certificate in appreciation. And here is, you probably don't need this in the least, but I'll hand it to you anyway. So thank you so much, Bob.